As Mr. Juamena left the hospital, his mind was a whirl of emotions. He had anticipated leaving with a heavy heart, yet the doctor's words echoed in his mind, filling him with a hope he had thought lost. The possibility of having more time, perhaps even a future, was something he hadn't dared to dream of. Now he was flooded with thoughts of Dadi and Nati, their laughter, their kindness, and the home they had shared. But he still returned to his mansion in Accra, needing a moment to let the reality sink in. As he entered the grand, empty house, he felt a strange hollowness echo through its luxurious rooms. The mansion, with all its elegance and sophistication, felt cold compared to the simple warmth of the village. He moved through its opulent spaces, but they brought him no joy. Memories of Dadi's laughter, Nati's boundless energy, and the village's quiet beauty tugged at his heart. No amount of wealth or grandeur could fill the void that their absence left within him. Sitting alone in his spacious living room, he knew his heart lay elsewhere. He couldn't live in the city anymore, not after knowing the richness of love he'd found in that small village. But before he returned, he resolved to do something that would change Dadi and Nati's lives forever. They had given him love and care without expecting anything in return, and he wanted to ensure their future was secure, even if he could not be with them in the long run. The next few days were a flurry of meetings. He summoned a few trusted friends, people who had been with him through the highs and lows, and shared his plans. All these arrangements were done discreetly. He wanted it to be a surprise when the time was right. Before leaving, he made one final decision. If the doctor's words are true, and I'm granted more time, in a few months I'll return for another checkup. If my health continues to improve, I'll consider telling her the truth. With his heart set, he left the city behind. Going back to the village was filled with a sense of anticipation, mingled with a touch of fear. Would she still be waiting? Would Nati, who looked up to him so much, still have faith that he'd return? As the village came into view, a sense of calm washed over him. He had come to this place broken and without hope, but Dadi and Nati had given him a reason to live, to believe. Their bond had become his anchor, grounding him in ways he hadn't expected. Meanwhile, in the village, Nati was having sleepless nights, his heart restless with worry over Mr. Juamena's absence. He missed their talks, the stories Juamena would share, and the way he made him feel important, seen. Each night, he waited for any sign of Juamena's return, glancing out the window, hoping against hope. Dadi, too, carried a quiet sadness, often gazing out her window, wondering if she would see his familiar figure walking down the path. One night, as Dadi was closing her window, she saw a shadow in the distance. Her heart leapt as the figure grew closer, finally revealing Mr. Juamena, with a smile that radiated warmth and relief. Dadi opened the door, her eyes brimming with unshed tears, her voice barely a whisper. "You came back." Juamena took a step forward, his gaze soft and filled with gratitude. "I promised I would, didn't I?" Nati, hearing the familiar voice, came rushing out, his face breaking into a wide grin. "Mr. Juamena!" he shouted, wrapping his arms around him. "I knew you'd come back." Juamena knelt, holding the boy tightly, his voice choked with emotion. "I missed you both more than you'll ever know." He looked up at Dadi, his heart full as he took in her gentle expression, the unspoken words lingering between them. That night, as they sat by the fire, Dadi couldn't help but ask, "You look different, lighter somehow. Did everything go well in Accra?" Juamena looked at her, the warmth of her presence giving him courage. "Yes, Day. In fact, better than I expected." A flicker of hope crossed her face and she smiled. "I'm glad, truly." He nodded, his gaze unwavering. "And I have you to thank. Your kindness, the care you've given me. It's more healing than any medicine." His voice softened, a hint of vulnerability seeping through. As they sat in the quiet comfort of each other's presence, Juamena felt an overwhelming sense of peace. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to dream, not just of surviving, but of living fully with the people who had become his true family. And though he knew there were challenges ahead, he felt ready to face them, hand in hand with Dadi and Nati, in the village that had become his sanctuary. Mr. Juamena settled comfortably into his life in the village, hiding his true identity and wealth. He chose to remain the quiet, humble man who had arrived with little more than the clothes on his back. Living with Dadi and young Nati, he grew accustomed to their daily routines, blending into village life. But his secret was safe only for as long as he played the part of a poor man, and this anonymity wasn't without challenges. Villagers started talking about him, questioning his motives and background. Some of Dadi's family and friends were concerned. "Who is this man you've taken in?" they would ask, their voices full of suspicion. "He came with nothing, a stranger with no past. What if he's hiding something dangerous? Let him go, Dadi. There are plenty of honest men here you could find." But Dadi was steadfast, ignoring their doubts and gossip. She saw something in Mr. Juamena's gentle spirit that others couldn't. His quiet kindness and the way he cared for her and Nati was enough for her to know he was a good man, regardless of his origins. Then one day, a man none of the villagers recognized arrived in the village, his presence impossible to ignore. He was dressed sharply, with an air of wealth that felt out of place in the small village. Driving a sleek, expensive car, he requested a meeting with the village chief. Whispers spread quickly as people gathered to see this wealthy visitor. At the chief's residence, the man made a bold request. "I'd like to buy 2 acres of land here," he said with a calm, commanding voice. The chief, taken aback, was curious. Land was rarely sold in such quantities to outsiders, especially not at prices city folk could afford. The chief showed the man a piece of land on the outskirts of the village. The man inspected it thoughtfully, then, to the chief's astonishment, paid twice the asking price without hesitation. The chief, though bewildered, was pleased with the unexpected generosity. He never imagined anyone would pay so much for land in their humble village. Soon, construction began. Workers arrived in groups, and supplies were brought in daily. The mansion that started rising on the land was unlike anything the villagers had ever seen. Grandeur that only the city seemed fit to house. Its high walls, grand columns, and intricate design left everyone speechless. Whispers and speculations spread like wildfire. "Who is this rich man?" the villagers murmured, gathering to watch the construction. "How can anyone afford to build a place like this here? What's he doing in our village?" Some villagers wondered if he was a city businessman looking to build a retreat, while others suspected he might be a foreigner, lured by stories of the village's peace and beauty. The chief himself was baffled, though delighted. He was proud to see such a structure rise within his village, and took it as a sign of good fortune. But none could imagine that the quiet, humble Mr. Juamena, the man they dismissed as poor and suspicious, was the one orchestrating it all. In secret, he had arranged for the mansion to be built, knowing that it would provide security and comfort for Dadi and Nati's future. With every brick laid, he felt a quiet satisfaction, keeping his promise to provide for the family that had given him a second chance at life. Mr. Djouamena kept up his unassuming role, listening to the villagers' speculations with a hidden smile. Only he knew the truth, that the mansion was meant to be a gift, a legacy of gratitude to the village that had given him a home, and to Day, who had seen him not as a stranger, but as a friend and family. Mr. Djouamena's plan to provide for Day and Nati moved forward quietly. He had confided in one of his closest friends, a man he trusted implicitly, to oversee the construction of the grand mansion in the village. This friend was the only one who knew the truth, that Mr. Djouamena was the mysterious benefactor behind the project. Together they ensured that everything progressed smoothly, with Mr. Djouamena staying out of the spotlight, content to let the rumors and curiosity surround the mansion's construction. He wanted it to be a gift of love, a home that would one day be a sanctuary for Day and Nati. As the days passed, Djouamena slipped back into the rhythm of village life. He joined Day and Nati on their daily trips to the farm, working the land with a renewed strength he could scarcely believe. Each morning, Day prepared her special herbal concoction, a simple blend of roots, leaves, and spices she collected from the hillsides. She always handed it to him with a gentle smile, saying, "This is to give you strength for the day." He took it gratefully, feeling its warmth settle into him, infusing him with vigor and calm. Djouamena often thought of the great Greek physician Hippocrates and his wise words, "Nature itself is the best physician." He realized just how true this was. Day's herbal remedies and the peaceful simplicity of village life were working wonders within him, healing both his body and spirit. In quiet moments, he would look at her and feel an overwhelming gratitude, seeing her as his healer, his secret doctor, and more than that, she was his everything. One evening after a long day, they gathered by the fireside as they often did, sharing stories and laughter. Nati was full of energy, as usual, recounting tales he had heard from friends and asking Mr. Djouamena questions about the world beyond the village. But that night, as the flames crackled and sent warm shadows dancing over their faces, Nati's expression grew serious. He hesitated, looking up at Djouamena with a gaze that seemed to hold a world of unspoken longing. "Mr. Djouamena," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper, "I need to ask you something important." Djouamena nodded, his heart tightening as he waited for the boy to continue. "Yes, Nati, go ahead. You can ask me anything." Nati's eyes filled with tears, his small hands trembling as he spoke. "My mother told me that my father died before I was born. I never got to meet him, and sometimes people say things about my mother, that she's a witch, that she killed him." His voice cracked and he wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I don't have a father, Mr. Djouamena, but could you be my father?" The raw vulnerability in Nati's voice tore through both Djouamena and Day. Day's face crumpled, and she couldn't hold back her tears as she pulled Nati close, wrapping her arms around him in a protective embrace. Djouamena felt his own heart shatter in that moment, each word sinking deeply, filling him with a surge of emotion he hadn't known was possible. He reached out, placing a steady hand on Nati's shoulder. His voice, thick with emotion, was barely steady as he spoke. "Nati, you have been my son from the very first day we met. You are my only son, and you always will be." Nati looked up, his tear-filled eyes meeting Djouamena's, and in that moment, A bond that went beyond blood was forged between them. Day, overcome by the love and healing that had entered their lives, held them both close. They sat there, wrapped in each other's warmth, sharing in the quiet, unspoken understanding that they were no longer simply three individuals bound by circumstance. They were a family, stitched together by love, loyalty, and the resilience that had carried them through life's darkest days. In the flickering firelight, Juamena knew he had found what he had been searching for his entire life. Not wealth, not status, but a family, a love that was pure and enduring. And in that moment, he vowed silently to protect them, to give them the life they deserved. The mansion being built in secret was only the beginning. His true gift to them was the promise he would keep forever, that they would never face life's hardships alone. They were his everything, and he was theirs. A few days later, driven by his newfound strength and sense of purpose, Mr. Juamena made his way to the site where his mansion was being constructed for Day and Nati. Dressed in plain clothes, he joined the laborers, blending in as just another worker. He didn't mind the hard work. In fact, he welcomed it. He found that the physical labor made him feel even stronger, his body invigorated by the strenuous tasks. He hauled bags of cement, mixed concrete, and carried supplies, immersing himself fully in the work. It gave him a chance to contribute with his own hands to the home he was building for his family. The other laborers, however, mocked him. They laughed at the sight of this poor stranger doing such hard work, thinking he was merely trying to scrape by for a little money. "Look at him, working himself to the bone as if he's a young man." Some would jeer. "Why doesn't he go back to the village where he belongs?" But Juamena ignored their scorn, letting their words pass by like the wind. He had a purpose, a dream, and a love that made every drop of sweat worthwhile. Months passed. Juamena continued to work quietly on the mansion, feeling his health improve day by day. His energy was renewed, his body stronger, and he felt almost reborn. Curious about his recovery, he decided to return to the hospital for another checkup, uncertain yet hopeful. Perhaps there was more to this journey than he had understood. The doctor greeted him with a smile, though there was a look of cautious surprise in his eyes. After a series of tests and examinations, the doctor returned to him with an expression of amazement. "Mr. Juamena," he began slowly, I don't know how to explain this. Your cancer, it's gone. There's no trace of it left in your body." Juamena's heart raced, disbelief flooding his mind. "Gone?" he echoed, his voice a whisper of wonder. "How can that be? Last time I was here you said I only had a few years." The doctor shook his head, still trying to process the results. "I can't explain it. This is nothing short of a miracle. I've never seen anything like it in all my years of practice. Tell me, Mr. Juamena, have you been on any treatments, any medications?" Juamena thought back to the simple concoctions Dadi had prepared for him each morning, the herbal mixtures she brewed with care, drawn from plants she collected in the village. No modern treatments," he said softly, a smile spreading across his face as he realized the answer. "But there's a woman in my village, Dadi. She's been giving me herbs every morning. She always said it was for strength." The doctor's eyes lit up, and he nodded thoughtfully. "Whatever she's been giving you, it's remarkable. Somehow those natural remedies have helped your body in ways we can't fully understand." Juamena left the hospital in a daze, filled with a deep sense of gratitude and wonder. The impossible had become possible, and he knew now that his life had been saved not by conventional medicine, but by the love and care of a woman who had seen past his brokenness. Dadi, without even realizing it, had healed him, giving him a second chance at life. As he made his way back to the village, his heart brimmed with gratitude, awe, and a love that he could hardly contain. He felt as if he had been given a miracle, a chance to start fresh, and he knew he owed it all to Nati, the woman who had become not just his healer, but the center of his life, his true home. He had returned to the village as a broken man, yet here he was, healed, loved, and more alive than he had ever felt. He walked through the village with a renewed sense of purpose, eager to spend every remaining day with Nati and Nati, ready to give back the life and love they had unknowingly given him. With a renewed life and a heart overflowing with gratitude, Mr. Juamena realized it was time to take the next step. Now that he had recovered, he felt no longer a burden, but a man with something precious to offer. Nati had stood by him through his darkest moments, without ever knowing his true identity or wealth. He knew he could spend the rest of his life by her side, honoring her kindness, resilience, and love. One beautiful evening, as the sun began to set and cast a golden glow over the village, Juamena gathered his courage. He walked over to Nati, who was seated outside their humble home, and took her hand. The simplicity of their lives, the gentle warmth of the village, and the quiet presence of each other made the moment feel almost sacred. "Nati," he began, his voice soft but steady, "you have given me more than I ever dreamed possible. You've healed me, given me a family, and shown me the beauty of a life filled with love. I cannot imagine spending my days with anyone else." He paused, looking into her eyes with a sincerity that left her breathless. "Will you marry me?" Nati was stunned, her hand covering her mouth, as she looked at him with a mix of surprise and joy. The idea of marriage had never crossed her mind, not since she'd lost Nati's father, and yet here was a man she'd grown to love, a man who'd become a father to her son. Her heart swelled, and she nodded, her eyes misty with tears. "Yes, Juamena. Yes, I will marry you." They shared a quiet, joyful moment, and as news of their engagement spread through the village, the excitement was palpable, though not all of it was positive. Some of the villagers mocked them, whispering behind their backs. "Nati has polished up a madman to marry her," they sneered. "A madman is always a madman, no matter how polished he appears." They couldn't believe that Nati would choose to marry a man who had arrived as a poor stranger, carrying the air of mystery and simplicity. But Nati ignored the ridicule. She knew Juamena's heart, the kindness, strength, and quiet dignity he possessed. She didn't need the approval of others to know that her choice was right. Juamena was her family, her partner, and the father her son had always longed for. Nati, upon hearing the news, was overjoyed. He had grown to love Mr. Juamena as a father, and the thought of them becoming a real family filled him with happiness. "Mama," he said with a wide grin, "this is the best news ever. Now we'll all be together, like a true family." With the mansion now fully completed, Mr. Juamena felt it was time to unveil his secret to the village in a way they would never forget. The once broken man who had arrived with nothing was now prepared to reveal the truth behind his modest act and honor Nati and Nati in the grandest way possible. He planned a celebration that would astonish everyone, combining their wedding with the official launch of the mansion he had built as a gift to his newfound family. Mr. Juamena's plans unfolded quietly. He arranged for caterers from Accra to prepare a feast fit for royalty and invited a few close friends who had helped build the mansion to witness this special occasion. As the days drew closer, whispers filled the village. People wondered about the commotion, the deliveries, and the mysterious preparations taking place in the grand new mansion. Villagers couldn't understand how Day, a simple woman, could afford such an extravagant celebration. They assumed it must be some strange coincidence or a celebration arranged by a wealthy outsider. The day before the grand event, they held a modest traditional marriage ceremony at Day's family home. The village gathered, many simply to gossip and mock. To them it seemed absurd that a madman like Mr. Uamena could be part of a marriage to someone as respected as Day. But Day and Nati, with love and happiness in their hearts, stood proudly by Uamena's side, unbothered by the whispers. At the end of the modest ceremony, as the guests began to leave, Uamena addressed the crowd. Standing tall, his voice strong and clear, he began to speak. "I know many of you have doubted me. I know you have whispered that I am a madman, or even worse. I understand why. It's true that I came to this village with nothing, looking like a stranger with no past or purpose. But what you saw was not my true self. What you saw was a man seeking more than wealth or power. I was looking for kindness, for someone who could see me for who I truly am, someone who would stand by me in love and compassion." The villagers murmured, shocked by his words, but they remained silent, drawn in by his sincerity. "I came here a broken man, dying of cancer," he continued. "Doctors gave me only a few years, and I wanted to spend those years with people who valued love and kindness over wealth and status. I wanted someone deserving to inherit the blessings life has given me, to carry on the legacy I would one day leave behind. But when I came, many of you turned away. You called me a thief, a madman, even tried to run me out of this village." The crowd looked down, some shifting uncomfortably. They remembered the harsh words, the accusations, and the ridicule they had thrown at him. But there was one person who showed me the kindness I had hoped to find. Day, along with her son Nati, took me in, cared for me, and loved me without question. They saw past my broken appearance and welcomed me with open hearts. Because of Day's care and the herbs she prepared each day, my health began to improve. Her remedies saved my life, and her love healed my spirit. I owe my life to her, and for that I wanted to give her and Nati the life they deserve." He paused, gesturing toward the mansion. "This home, this mansion you see, was built for Day and Nati. It is my gift to them, a testament to the love and kindness they showed me. And tomorrow we will celebrate our marriage here in this house that now belongs to them." The villagers stood in stunned silence, the weight of his words sinking in. The truth was beyond anything they had imagined. They had mocked a man who had come to them with open hands, searching for kindness, and in doing so, they had nearly missed witnessing a love story that was truly remarkable. In the heartwarming conclusion to the grand celebration, Mr. Uamena gathered the villagers, friends, and family to share one last surprise. With a proud smile, he announced, "There is one more gift I would like to give, a gift that will open doors for the future. Nati, in 1 month's time, you will be traveling abroad to further your education. I have arranged everything for you so you can pursue your dreams and become anything you wish to be." At these words, Day and Nati were overcome with emotion. Tears filled their eyes as they clung to each other, unable to contain the depth of their gratitude. Once scorned and mocked, Day, who had been labeled as nothing more than a poor widow, even accused of being a witch, now stood proudly beside the man who had changed their lives forever. Those who had once whispered and sneered were now the ones ashamed, their harsh words and cold judgment a bitter reminder of their own folly. The villagers who had come intending to mock found themselves silenced by admiration and regret. As Mr. Juamena and Deide exchanged vows in front of their guests, Nati looked on with a radiant smile, feeling a profound pride and a sense of completeness. For the first time, he had the family he had always longed for, a mother and a father who loved him and each other deeply. The following day, the mansion was once again opened to welcome friends, family, and the entire village for a feast that celebrated not just their marriage, but the love and unity that had blossomed against all odds. Tables overflowed with food. The grounds were adorned with vibrant decorations, and the air was filled with music and laughter. Villagers who had once doubted and mocked were now in awe of the life and joy radiating from the home that Juamena had gifted to his family. For the first time, the villagers saw Mr. Juamena in a new light. They recognized not just the grand gesture of the mansion, but the man behind it. A man who had come seeking kindness, who had been humbled by life, and who, despite facing ridicule, had found a home and family in their midst. His journey from brokenness to wholeness became a story that would be told throughout the village, a story of resilience, love, and redemption. As the celebration continued into the night, Juamena, Deide, and Nati stood together as a family, bound not just by circumstance, but by the strength of the love they had shared and the journey they had endured. They knew that the future would bring new challenges and joys, but they would face them together, fortified by the love that had healed them and given them a second chance at happiness. From that day forward, the mansion stood not only as a symbol of wealth, but as a reminder of compassion and humility, a testament to the transformative power of love and kindness. And for Juamena, Deide, and Nati, their story became a legacy, one that would inspire the village for generations to come. A month after the grand wedding, as promised, Nati embarked on his journey abroad to further his education, a path now filled with endless possibilities thanks to Mr. Juamena's love and support. Meanwhile, Juamena and Deide continued their peaceful life in the village, cherishing the quiet moments they shared together. One morning, a few months later, Deide came to Juamena with news that filled him with overwhelming joy. She was expecting a child. Juamena was overjoyed, feeling that life had granted him yet another precious gift. 6 months after hearing the news of her pregnancy, Juamena gently told Deide that it was time to move to the city. He wanted their family to experience the full extent of the life he had built, and he hoped to offer them comfort and security in a way he had once thought impossible. Deide was astonished as they left the village and entered the bustling city. She was speechless as she saw Juamena's properties, luxurious homes, beautiful cars, thriving businesses, all symbols of the life he'd kept hidden to find someone who loved him for who he truly was. Together they settled into this new chapter, surrounded by love and prosperity, raising their family with values of kindness, humility, and gratitude. Years passed, and together they had 3 beautiful children, creating a full and joyful household, with Nati completing their family as the eldest son. Their journey, from humble beginnings through trials and ultimately into a life of joy, became a story that inspired many. It showed that true love sees beyond appearances and can transform lives in ways unimaginable. As we end this story, we invite you to reflect on the powerful lessons within. Ask yourself, is your love genuine or conditional? Do you judge others by their appearances, or do you take the time to understand the person within? Remember, never judge a book by its cover. Extend kindness freely without reservation, for you never know the angels among you. Let your heart be open and compassionate, loving others as you love yourself, and embrace those who are in need. True love and kindness can change lives, turning the least expected moments into something miraculous. May we all cultivate a heart that loves unconditionally, that sees the beauty and dignity in every person. Let us be instruments of love, peace, and understanding. One simple act of kindness can transform a destiny. So let love lead the way in all we do. Say Amen if you believe in the power of love. Thank you for watching Anansi Web of Tales. Please subscribe, comment, and let us know where you're watching from. See you in the next story.